What is special and unique about taking a spiritual journey to Egypt?
Well, what I find is that virtually every person on the journey experiences their own awakening, their own activation of their personal energies. The interesting thing about Egypt and the times that we're in now, not only do individuals experience their own personal activations, but they bring encodements to Egypt. In a manner of speaking, energetic keys that when we as individuals mesh in certain areas and in certain groups, then these encodements, these activations, they're activated. And in that occurring, it affects literally humanity as a whole. And that's something that I find very special about being able to experience this with those who are on the journey with me.
So if someone feels really called to go on a trip to Egypt like this, it's for a reason. They have these encodements that are waiting to be activated.
It really is. It's most definitely for a reason. You know, we don't just arbitrarily do things, even though sometimes we think we do. You know, things really have a purpose. The choices that we make, there really is a purpose behind them. And one who is drawn to go to Egypt or has some interest in that, most definitely they will have an experience of a lifetime.
And I said in the introduction that we're going to the power places of Egypt. What do you mean by power places?
Well, they are literally vortexes of energy. And just, you know, as you follow the Nile up, all of the various temples that we will visit, and including the pyramids, they're all vortexes of energy. They're power points, power places upon this earth. They are geometrically designed, most of them, and geometrically placed. If you take and with the Giza Plateau, for instance, and you've got the three pyramids, the three major pyramids that's set up on the Giza Plateau, they are geometrically laid out. They fit a golden mean spiral as in their layout, which corresponds with the stars. I absolutely would say anyone who has had a desire to go to Egypt, this really is the year to go. As probably most people know at this point, we're reaching the conclusion of the Mayan calendar, and the Mayan calendar ends on 12/21/12, and give or take a day or so, but essentially 12/21/12 is the ending time. That's the winter solstice, and we are in such a transition stage or place in our evolution as humans on Earth. And this is a time and the importance of the conclusion of the Mayan calendar, this is also the conclusion of the Earth goes through cycles, and there's a 26,000-year cycle that occurs, and there are 5,200-year cycles within that 26,000-year cycle. There are 5 5,200-year cycles. Well, we are at the end of a 26,000-year cycle, at the end of the Mayan calendar as it stands, and the conclusion of an age, literally. And the conclusion doesn't mean that the Earth is no longer going to, or that we're no longer going to be here. The conclusion is that we're completing one stage and we're moving into a new age, into a new time. And as through this occurrence, we as humans are experiencing a consciousness expansion. Our consciousness is, the shift is literally our expanding consciousness. That's what's going on. And to be able to experience that in such a sacred place as Egypt, and particularly that specific day, and we'll probably get into this as we talk a little more, but that specific day, we will be inside the Great Pyramid doing ceremony, exclusively our group.
I know that with you having gone for so many years, you yourself are very knowledgeable, and there's a tour company or a guide that will be leading us. Is that right?
Yes. I work with a very formidable tour group there, and they themselves have been in business for many, many years. And we'll work with an Egyptologist who is awesome, just awesome, and very spiritually based at the same time. Not only knowledgeable from the book learning aspect of Egypt, but very knowledgeable of the spiritual connection and aspects of Egypt and of the temples and their sacredness, conscious and aware of their sacredness. The Egyptologists are the particular ones that I work with are awesome.
And what are the accommodations like?
The hotels that we stay in are 5-star hotels. They're the best available. Our Nile cruise is a 5-star cruise. It's just it's amazing. It's a wonderful experience. We've got it's just great. We get to come back and experience that 5-star experience, but then we get to go out and experience
ride a camel, right?
Temples that are ride a camel or an Arabian horse, and experience temples that are thousands of years old.
What's the food like?
Food is very good. And there are many different types. There's American food. There's all types of food that you'll experience in the hotel, and also those who go will have time if they want to go out and experience food and outside the hotel to other restaurants or other places. The Egyptian food is very good. I've had people that have been had to be gluten-free, and they go over to Egypt and they try the bread, and it's okay. It doesn't bother them. I find that really interesting because there's not a gluten issue or factor in the breads, in the meat, or in the foods that they prepare. It's really interesting, and it's unfortunate that we process stuff so severely here to where we have that problem, because they just don't seem to have that over there. But the food is very good. The Egyptian food is also very good. It's a type of Middle Eastern food, but it's very very uniquely Egypt. It's not like other Egyptian, and I'm sure that other Middle Eastern, different Middle Eastern countries all have their own twist to the foods. Personally, I prefer the Egyptian twist to others. I find it very, very tasteful and not overly spicy for me. But there are many choices in foods. There's the traditional Egyptian food, which is always available, and American fare and fish and you name it.
All right. Well, let's do a little mini tour here. Let's go through each day, and you tell us a little bit about what we will be experiencing on each day.
Our first visit we will go to a couple of places. We'll visit a couple of pyramids that are more newly discovered, and those are the pyramids at Abu Sur and Abu Ghraib. And those are, they're very interesting pyramids. And then we'll go on to Saqqara and see the Step Pyramid, do some work there, some ceremonial type work at the Step Pyramid. The Step Pyramid is the oldest, so far the oldest structured pyramid that has been discovered, and it was built for King Zoser, and it was built by Imhotep, who is the architect and also is a mystic. Imhotep was known as being a mystic along with being an architect, an alchemist. And so he designed the Step Pyramid. So that's what we'll do on our first day. Well, then the next day we'll have a chance. We'll have the opportunity to go to the Egyptian Museum, to Cairo Museum, and which is awesome. We'll see much of the original King Tut exhibit, and plus many, many other things. And we'll also, we might not at that time, I was going to say we might have a little time for shopping, but probably not quite yet, because we'll fly down that afternoon to Aswan, which is down at the very southern part of Egypt. Actually, it's Upper Egypt. Upper Egypt is in the south, and Lower Egypt is in the north.
Oh.
And the reason for that is because the Nile, the Nile flows from south to north. And therefore, Upper Egypt is down south, and Lower Egypt is up north. So we'll go to the furthest south point the furthest town or city point of Upper Egypt, which is down south, and that is Aswan.
Okay.
And while we're in Aswan, we will go and we'll visit the Temple of Isis. We'll take a boat from Aswan, which is right on the Nile, and we'll take a small boat over to the Temple of Isis, which is on Philae Island. We'll do some sound experiences there. I always take crystal bowls with us on the journeys. And we'll do some sound experiences at the Temple of Isis, and which is an amazing temple of a feminine nature. We'll visit the birthing. Well, there's a birthing temple within the temple, which we will visit. And then, as we complete that, then we'll check into our Nile cruise, and so we'll begin our cruise up the Nile. And we will probably
just to think about this. Amazing.
Oh, it is. And on that day, we will have a little time for shopping, and we'll be able to see. Aswan it's each city or town is very unique, or at least somewhat unique in as far as shopping goes, the things that they have available, because they're all, of course, local. And in Aswan, the population is a very high Nubian population, which is a very African population. And there are special things that are made by the Nubians that are available there in Aswan. It's really cool. It's a very rounded experience. I mean, we get to experience such sacred moments, and at the same time, we get to go shopping. the Egyptologists I work with will read the hieroglyphs to us and translate the stories that are on the walls of the temples, and that correlate with the temples themselves, the stories that tell of the temples. So anyway, as we continue on our cruise, we'll also, one afternoon, we'll have the opportunity to go on a felucca ride. A felucca is, that's one of the smaller boats. It's a sailboat. And we'll just go sailing. We'll get to take a sail,
wow,
through the Nile, for a few hours just to experience. It's extremely relaxing, and just be able to see the countryside from a small sailboat. So that's cool. It's just a really awesome, unique experience. And as we continue on, as we're on our cruise up the Nile, we will go to the next temple in line will be Komombo. And we'll visit Komombo, and Komombo is dedicated to Horus, the falcon god, and Sobek, the crocodile god. And it's a temple of duality. A very interesting temple. It's actually, the way they built the temple is each side mirrors the other. It's like a double temple next to each other, and one side mirrors the other. One side is dedicated to Horus, the other side is dedicated to Sobek. And really interesting thing about the hieroglyphs there is that this is one of the places known for healing aspects for the common people. And in the hieroglyphs, there are surgical instruments that are carved as hieroglyphs. I mean, there are stethoscopes in the hieroglyphs. There are scalpels in the hieroglyphs. I mean, it'll amaze you when you see these things. It's like, my God, these are thousands of years old. And these are instruments that were used that long ago. And, and it just gives you a sense of, in many ways, how advanced the civilization was at that time. And then, of course, as years went on, we kind of digressed. But it really is it's amazing. And at Komombo, we'll just spend a few hours there, and then we'll head on up the Nile to the actual temple of Horus, which is at Edfu. And we'll have the opportunity there to go into the temple and experience and visit the temple and see the light show that they offer at the temple of Horus, which is really cool. And as we continue on, we'll sail through the Esna Lock, which is where the Nile shifts in its it's like the Panama Canal, but it's on the Nile, where the water level shifts. So we go through the lock and go through that shift, and then we sail on into Luxor. And we'll visit Luxor that evening, and Luxor is known as the Temple of Man. And the way Luxor is laid out, it actually energetically resembles man, or the body of man, or of man-woman. When I say man, I mean it's what's the
human
word? Well, I mean it human, yes. And so the Temple of Luxor it's very unique in that way, and so it's known as the Temple of Man. or human. And in addition, while we're in Luxor, we'll also visit the Temple of Karnak. And we'll come back to Karnak a few days later, because we'll stay in Luxor in that area for a couple of days. And so the next day we'll head on out to Dendara, which is where the Temple of Hathor is. And for me personally, I have a very strong connection to the Hathors, which is they are known as a race of beings, fifth-dimensional beings that are known as masters of sound and love. And the goddess Hathor is essentially the ambassador of that race in Egyptian time. And she is known, she is one of the Egyptian deities. And this temple is built to the Hathors. And it's an absolutely amazing temple, very powerful, very strong energy. And we'll most definitely, as we're there, experience and do some sound work and ceremony in the temple. It's just an awesome place. I mean, it's they're known as the masters of sound and love. It only seems right that we do some sound work there. And later that day, we'll go from there, because it's a pretty good drive from the Nile out to Dendara, to the Temple of Hathor, and equally to the Temple of Abydos. So after we visit the Temple of Hathor, we'll go to the Temple of Abydos. And Abydos its building was begun by Seti I, and it was completed by Ramses II, his son. And Abydos it's actually one of my favorite temples. It's the energy there is extraordinary. And what they did in those days was that they would build temples on top of temples. So in other words, 1,000 years would pass, and if a temple was not utilized, then at some point, or if a big sandstorm came, it would cover the temple. And so as they were covered, they would build another temple on top of the previous temple. Well, below the Temple of Abydos, there's another temple. And the Temple of Abydos was built around 3000 BC, thereabouts. And the temple beneath the Abydos temple, which is known as the Osiris temple. And the Osiris temple dates back somewhere between 7,500 and 8,500 years before the Abydos temple. So that puts it back around 10,500 BC, somewhere between 10,500 and 11,000 BC. And, I mean, that's during the Atlantean time. It's very old, and they don't know who built it. And there are only a few carvings or sculptings within that temple. And one of the sculptings that's found in the Osiris temple is the flower of life, which we will get to see. And the flower of life, early on, was only discovered in about 3 places around the world. One in Egypt in the Osiris temple beneath Abydos, one in South America in the Peru area, and one in China on one of the sacred temples in China. And the symbol is, scientists have looked at it and have determined it appears so perfectly done that many feel that it was literally lasered into the granite. not carved, but lasered, because it's so perfectly etched in the granite. And the flower of life, for those of you that may not be familiar with that, is said to be, it's said to hold all information for creation geometrically. It's a sacred geometric form, and is said to hold all information for creation from the standpoint of geometry. So we'll get to see that while we're there.
Awesome.
And as we continue our cruise, as we continue up the Nile, we'll visit the West Bank, which is the Valley of the Kings, and have an opportunity to see and to actually go into some of the sacred burial places of the great pharaohs. And this is a place where where many of the paintings, the hieroglyphic paintings, are still in almost pristine condition, because they were shut off from the outer air for thousands of years. And as they discovered these temples, or these burial sites, and they're dug very deep into the mountain, it's just amazing to see some of the things that they accomplished at that time. And the painting and the colors are they're absolutely beautiful, and it's amazing, again, how pristine and how they have kept over thousands of years. And from the Valley of the Kings, we'll go on to visit Hatshepsut's temple. Hatshepsut is a pharaoh. She's a female, a woman pharaoh, who was as powerful as any of the men pharaohs that Egypt had. And she was not well looked upon because she was a woman, but that didn't stop her. She was a very powerful pharaoh and woman. And the temple, Hatshepsut's temple, it's amazing. It's carved into the mountainside, and it's beautiful. And some of the sculptings of Hathors that are found at that temple are some of the best I have seen anywhere. I mean, they're beautiful and so perfectly done. And so as we continue on, we'll go back to Luxor, and we'll spend more time in Karnak, the Temple of Karnak. Karnak is the largest temple in Egypt. And the reason it's the largest is because every pharaoh would add on their part to it. And so it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so every pharaoh has a part in Karnak. And while in Karnak, we'll be able to visit the temple or the sanctuary of Sekhmet. And it's usually so much of the time they keep it closed, they keep it locked up, but we're usually able to get in. And I'm holding that this will not be any different than other times, that we'll be able to get into Sekhmet's chapel. And Sekhmet is the lioness goddess, and she has an amazing history. She actually had experience on the dark side of things. And as a result of that, as she moved into the light with the assistance of Osiris and Isis, she moved into the light, and she is known for her great strength and her great power, feminine power, raw feminine power. And you might compare her in Celtic times. You might compare her to Morgana in a positive sense. in her raw feminine nature. And but back to Egypt, she's also known as the goddess of compassion. Because of her experiences, she is able to go deeply into and convey that sense of compassion because she's experienced both sides. She's experienced the negative, and she's experienced the positive, and she knows what that's like, and is able to pass on that essence and energy of compassion. So just a really powerful goddess. And as we continue on, that brings us up to day 11. And we'll head from Luxor back to Cairo in preparation. And each of these experiences through the various temples as we've cruised up the Nile are gearing us up and bringing forth more and more activations within each one of us as we prepare for our experience in the Great Pyramid.
Yeah.
And as we return to Cairo in preparation for our experience in the Great Pyramid, and throughout this overall experience, we will get to experience the Egyptian alchemy high heart activation, which is something very special coming through from the Egyptian alchemy practices, from the Egyptian alchemy teachings, and specifically overseen by the Hathors. And we'll get to experience that as part of our preparation for our entry into the Great Pyramid. And on our 12th day, which will be December 21st, 2012, we will go into the Great Pyramid. We'll spend some time at the Sphinx and experience the energy and the essence of the Sphinx, also in preparation for moving into the Great Pyramid. And there are many, many things about the Sphinx that I'm probably not going to go into right now, but we'll do some meditation through our experience and actually enter into the halls of Amenti and connect with the Akashic records. The halls of Amenti, that is a record-keeping place, which is akin to the Akashic records. And so we'll experience that again as part of our preparation for going into the Great Pyramid. And our sound experience in the Great Pyramid on the winter solstice is an experience of emanating peace and harmony and consciousness expansion throughout humanity, throughout our earth. And with the energy of the pyramid, with the energy of the sound vibration that we'll create, with the energy of the crystal bowls, we will expand that vibration, literally encompassing the earth, connecting with all other experiences that people are having throughout the earth on the winter solstice. It's mind-blowing to think about, because ceremony will be going on all over the world on that day, and we will be doing our part from the Great Pyramid. We literally are the pivotal point for every other ceremony that's existing on the earth. So I'm just
it gives
getting
me
chills
goosebumps.
talking about
I'm just covered with goosebumps. Yeah.
And as our experience, we in connecting, and then we'll send that wave of vibration and energy out as it comes into us, sending it out, and literally, what's the word? It just literally ripples out around the earth, around the world, rippling through every person who we're connected with. And what is so cool about this ripple effect is that it doesn't just stop there. We go out, we leave, we go on the next day, and we fly back home. Every person we touch in that process experiences that rippling effect. Every person we touch through the airport or airports as we return home. Every person that we touch once we arrive home and connect with in various ways will experience that rippling effect. We literally will affect every human being on earth, ultimately.
Tell our listeners how they can be part of this amazing journey.
Well, first thing to do is to contact me either email or by phone. It's probably easier at this point by email, and then we can connect by phone. I do a fair bit of traveling, and I'm not as not as phone connected while I'm traveling, but I am email connected. So you can reach me at Paul, P-A-U-L, at holographicsound.com, HOLOGRAPHIC, Paul at holographicsound.com.